Call this beat Will Smith, cause it slaps hard. Hear it not when I pull up on your boulevard.
If you're going to be studying up on women, how can you effectively treat this as if you're studying for an exam? Well, I got 6 ways that you can go about treating the study of women and dating in general as if you're studying for an exam. So the first way to do that, the first way to treat studying women like you're studying for an exam is to set goals for yourself. What skill sets are you lacking currently that you need to learn in order to better equip yourself for the dating world? You need to figure out what those things are and then set goals and timetables for how you're going to achieve them. So for example, if you're bad with, we'll just use approaching. If you're bad with approaching women, okay, you might have to make it a goal to be able to either approach X amount of women per day in order to get comfortable with it. Or you might say, okay, I need to get rejected like 49 times in order to get a date the 50th time. So if your goal is, I need to ask out 50 women to get one date, then your approach goal is to approach 49 women. But you need to have realistic goals you can set for yourself. So that way you can incrementally start to get better at notching each of these goals. Because once you get better with approaching, for example, then the next thing is going to be, okay, great. Now, how do I talk to a woman enough? How do I communicate with her in a conversation to make her feel lively and bubbly around me? And the next goal might be, okay, great. Now, how do I actually ask for the number? Now, how do I ask for the date? Now, how do I figure out what kind of date to take her on? And by the way, these are steps that I all lay out in my program, the Introvert Dating Success Academy, which is also available at the website. So after setting a goal, the second step in studying women like you're studying for an exam is to prepare and research. You need to do a deep dive into for example, approaching. You need to do a deep dive into, approaching women. What kind of approaches do women respect and what kind of ones do they not respect? What things are most effective and what things are going to scare them away? You need to research that thoroughly and then start to prepare for, okay, what are the ways in which you're going to try to do an approach, for example? What things you're going to say? How are you going to approach them? Whether it's like you're walking from behind, you're walking up front at them, you're coming in from the side, like, in what ways are you going to prepare yourself for this? Are you going to have a certain type of clothes on or wear a certain type of cologne to make yourself feel confident? Either way, preparing and researching are going to be vital steps that you need to take in order to treat this as though it's like studying for an exam. The third way to treat studying women like you're studying for an exam is to become an active listener. You need to really start listening to, I almost want to say, start listening to what women want out of relationships, but that's not actually what I want you to do, because women will say the things that they think they want, but then they'll actually go for other things. And so what the real exercise is to start asking women about guys that they dated in the past, what drew them to those guys, how long they stayed with those guys, maybe why it did or did not work out, but start listening to a woman's actual history about her dating life and not the stuff that she wishes would happen. And you'll start to get a more realistic idea of the kinds of things that women are legitimately looking for in relationships. Now, this also goes to if you're dating a woman and like she's already in the throes of dating you and she's expressing needs of things or things that are making her feel emotional or things that she's having problems with you. This is the time where you don't want to be that guy that's trying to just like brush off everything, because there's going to be times that women tell you stuff and you're thinking, that's not a thing. That can't be true. How dare you feel that way? But in the moment, whatever they're saying is real to them and it's coming from a real place. So the more you start being less deflective and the more you start actively saying, wait a minute, she's saying something that to her has merit. Let me see where this is coming from. You'll start to get a better understanding of the female psyche and how they think about things. Even stuff you disagree with, you'll get an idea of how they think about things, how they come to conclusions. And that's going to allow you to get a better understanding of how to approach them later on, should you have your own things to discuss with them. So it's a very, very important exercise to do. The fourth way to study women as if you're studying for an exam is to practice, practice, practice. Look, you watching these videos, fantastic. You reading my various things, great. You going to different forums and discussing with other guys about things they're doing, awesome. None of that is actually getting out to the real world. I know as you as an introvert might be thinking, man, I wanted to sit home and have a woman come to me. I don't want to go out there and have to do all this work. I assure you, as an introvert myself, I will say this, is that early on, the work can be at times nerve-wracking or anxiety-inducing, but I'm at a place now where that stuff is actually fun for me. And the reason it's fun is because I now have a pathway to be able to interact with women in a positive way that gets me the results that I want. But that all came from practicing. And you got to start somewhere. You got to practice that approach. You got to practice that flirtation. You got to practice asking women on dates and not asking them for their input. These are all things that are not going to feel natural or going to cause anxiety early on. I promise you, as you do these things more and more, it'll get easier and easier. More importantly, you'll start to make mistakes, which is great because the only way you can really truly learn is to feel these tactile mistakes so you can actually feel like, oh crap, I messed up. I may not do that again. Or, oh my God, I fell flat on my face. My approach didn't work and she walked off. So I know not to approach like that anymore. And as you do this more and more, you'll start to find that this becomes A, a fun exercise, and B, you start to get really good at it because you start to learn what not to do, which is why I wrote a whole book about what not to do with women, because I want you to read that book first before you start to figure out what to do with women, because we need to get you rid of bad habits, all right? But yeah, if you do that stuff, then you'll find that as you practice more, you'll become more comfortable. The fifth way to start studying women as if you're studying for an exam is to learn to be flexible. We're all emotional to some extent, but women especially, they can change like night and day. They might feel overly hype about you one day, and the next day they might be, in their period, or might be feeling some other emotional thing where they're not as into you as they were, and you can't let that jar you. You might have plans to take her someplace, and in the last minute she says, oh, I got to cancel, or oh, I want to go here instead. You can't let that jar you. You have to become a guy that is ultimately indifferent to a variety of things that are going on in your dating world, whether it's she flakes out last minute, whether she cancels, whether she suddenly brings a friend along that you didn't anticipate. Like, all these things are going to happen. Or you might have a plan for a date and she has a better plan. I don't want you to be that guy that's like, no, we got to stick to my plan because I'm the guy and blah, 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 blah. Like, you need to be a guy that ultimately is cool, calm, and collected, and is able to go with the flow. Not on all things. If you have certain principles that you stand by, then I don't want you to flex on those things. But most things in relationships aren't so super serious that you can't tend to lean a bit or be flexible every so often, But in studying women, you have to understand that the things you're studying, part of that's going to be if she changes her mind on something, if she has an emotional thing that happens to her, like what's going to happen. And the more comfortable you become with that, then the more she's going to see you as the rock she can lean on when her world's going like this. And that's what we want ultimately, And then the sixth way to start studying up on women, as if you're studying for an exam, is to reflect, analyze, and learn. So you're going to go out on these dates. You're going to try these approaches. You're going to try your leadership skills. You're going to try texting her a certain way, and things are either going to go great or they're going to go awful. In either scenario, you want to look back and say, okay, so, let's take the texting example, right? You met a new girl, you text her every single day, and by the 14th day, she stops talking to you. Happens all the time because I get those messages all the time, right? So you reflect, okay, I texted her every day, and now she's no longer interested. Now, if I think back to this previous girl, I only texted her like once or twice a week, and she was all over me. So if I'm reflecting on that, now you go to the analyze part. Okay, so analyzing these two scenarios, is it going to be better for me to text a woman a lot or text a woman from time to time? And then you can learn from that. Okay, I'm learning more and more that texting less results in a woman liking me a lot longer. Maybe I should try texting less. And this actually is an example that I did where it's like, once I started texting women less, I got better results. I got women texting me a lot faster and texting me more often. And I was able to get into relationships and keep them longer because I wasn't constantly in front of her face electronically when I was trying to date her. And so that's just a small example of how this process works. But yeah, if you start to treat this treat studying women like you're studying for an exam, whereby you're setting goals, you're preparing and researching, you're doing active listening, you're practicing, you're learning to be flexible, and then you're reflecting, analyzing, and learning, you're going to find your results to women start to go up, because right now you might be in a space where maybe you don't have the most success with women, but as you're studying, part of studying means you have to put yourself out there. As you put yourself out there, you're doing new things, you're trying new things, and you're becoming more comfortable with doing those things. And you becoming comfortable is ultimately what's going to get you women, because women want to be around a guy that feels comfortable, isn't anxious, knows his worth, knows that in the grand scheme of things, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. You're indifferent. And that makes women feel less pressured to have to choose you, which now makes it their choice. And now they want to choose you and they want to go after you. And as I always say, if they're chasing you, they can't be replacing you. And you know the guys that women chase? The ones that have studied them enough to know what they want. So you become that guy that I promise you, you will get way better results in your dating life. All right.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high class man. You a high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class